Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Hope y'all having a great day. And with no further ado, let us get into my AFC North predictions. If you haven't seen either of my AFC or NFC East predictions, I will link them. Link the playlist down at the bottom of this video so you guys can go check them out. But with no further ado, let's get into it. Starting off with the Steelers, who I think in week one do get the win over the Falcons. I do think Pittsburgh, we know, it's going to win between 8 and 10 games. They're not going to win less or more than that. And against the Falcons team, who I'm not very high on, like, I think the two QB system they have with Tua or Penix is not going to work out. And I think they're more than likely going to either move on from both or maybe keep one and bring in a quarterback next year. I do think they lose to New England. I had the Patriots winning that game in my AFC's prediction. So trying to keep the games, similar to how I have picking them. So I think they start 1-1. I do think they beat the Bengals in week three, a much improved Bengals team, but Pittsburgh's at home against a Cincy team that, for the most part, they've pretty much dominated. And even though Cincinnati has brought in, more talent on the defensive side, we're gonna have to see if the Bengals can um what's the word? If the Bengals can if the Bengals can hold up on that side. Week four, Thursday night football, I think they lose to the Browns. I mean, they haven't swept Cleveland since 2017 when the Browns went winless. So since 2018 through last season, they've at least split those two games. I think there was one year where they tied one of the games. So they haven't swept them, and I don't think it continues despite the Browns not having much talent on the field this upcoming year. I think they beat the Colts and the Bucks, but I think they lose to New Orleans before beating Cleveland at home. Indy and Tampa Bay, I'm not that high on this upcoming year. I'm higher on the Colts because they have a better coaching staff, in my opinion, and I think they'll be able to get more out of them. But I'm not high on either team to be that great. So I think the Steelers can um, get some wins there. I do think the Saints, which it was just revealed today that Alvin Kamara will be missing at least a month with an MCL sprain. That's the second player for the Saints to be out over a month, with Jordan Tyson also out. But I do think the Saints, who I'm very high on, I think they could be a potential playoff team, get the win in France, and then I think they split with the Browns. I think they split with all the AFC North teams because they're all really, really close and really competitive. That it's hard to pick one. Like it's hard to pick one team to sweep the other when they're all really close. But I think they head into the bye at 5-3, which would be pretty good. Maybe they beat the Saints or Patriots and they're 6-2 or who knows 7-1. But we'll see how the rest of the schedule goes because we know the Steelers tend to get off to really hot starts and then they falter. I think they split with Cincinnati. I think the Bengals will be ready for that game. I mean, they won last year despite Joe Flacco being the quarterback, and Cincy had lost four consecutive, so I think they get the job done. I think they lose to Philly, which I had the Eagles winning that game, but should be a really entertaining game. I think they lose to Denver, which three consecutive losses off the bye is not what you want to see. And I'm gonna have it be four consecutive. I'm sorry. It's a really tough stretch post bye. Cincy, Philly, Denver, and Houston, all teams that will be hopefully competing for the playoffs. Come October, November. So it'll be a tough stretch. I do think they beat the Jags on the road. I think Pittsburgh, this like they'll lose four straight, and everybody will be like the Steelers, aren't going to do anything this year. And then they come out with the wins. I think they beat the Ravens. I think they'll split with them, so I think they win this one at home. I think they beat the Panthers. I think they beat Tennessee in Week 17, but lose to the Ravens, which I think would ultimately give them what 9-8 record. Seems like they do it every season. So yeah, I think the Steelers really, not hard stretch early on, which could, have them starting off really good, but it's a really tough stretch post by even like some of their easier games, like against the Panthers and Titans. Those aren't pushover teams in my opinion. And we'll see how Pittsburgh fares second half of the year because that's always seemed to be their kryptonite. They always get off to really good starts, and the Steelers, you know, start to falter once they play really good competition late into the season. But we'll see how this team fares post their bye week in week 9. Moving on to the Ravens, who have a really easy schedule early on. Like there's not many teams on their early schedule where like you could get like say they're gonna lose. Like Indy, I'm not. I already said I wasn't really that high on, so I think the Ravens get a win there. I think they beat the Saints at home in their home opener to move to 2-0. It's just the Saints. This is early. We already said both Tyson and Kamara will be out, so New Orleans is going to be handicapped on the offensive side, and I don't know if that defense is going to be any better than it was last season with not many additions. This game against the Cowboys, I think, could be interesting. It's in Brazil, so it's a really neutral site game. Um, that neither team, will have like their full fan base there. But I do think the Ravens, the better team, like that defense, will be able to play well against the Cowboys, and I think the Ravens offense will be able to find ways against a really talented Dallas defense to move the points, and I think they get off to a 3-0 start. I think they beat the Titans to move to 4-0, and then Atlanta, Cleveland, two really tough games um, that they definitely could lose, but I'm not high on the Falcons, and as much as I said, like, the Browns are really competitive with the Steelers, the Ravens have controlled this series for the most part, and I feel like against Todd Monken, the former offensive coordinator for the Ravens, they're gonna want to, prove that they are truly dominant, and I think they start 7-0, which might seem crazy, but I mean, you look at that stretch, outside of the Colts game, which on the road could be tough. A Cowboys game should be tough. Maybe some of these, but like even the Bengals game will be tough. But there's no opponent on here that's like a guaranteed loss. And I think the Ravens could start 7-0 and be a real force for the rest of the AFC. I did have them losing to the Bills, but I think they beat the Jags to move to 8-1 as we enter the second half of their schedule. Yeah, they have a late bye in week 13. I think they beat the Chargers at home. Jesse Minter, not revenge game, but Jesse Minter versus his old squad against the Chargers. I think they beat the Panthers and the Texans before their bye, which I think would put them at 11-1 since I only have them losing to the Bills, which might seem crazy, but like you look at that schedule, like yes, there are hard teams that they play, but most of them they play at home, and even the road opponents, it's like the Ravens are better than those teams, and I think under Jesse Minter, this team is going to be better. Yeah, I think they're going to be better, which is why I don't think they're going to be like undisciplined. They were like they were these past couple of years under Harbaugh, and I think they're going to take care of business against teams they should take care of business against. Off the bye, I think they beat the Bucks. I think they sweep Cleveland, but I will have them losing to the Bengals to finish 14-3. I want to say, yeah. I mean, this Ravens team. You look at the schedule; it's not that hard. Like yes, they play tough teams throughout it, but most of those teams, the Ravens are either better than or they're at home and the Ravens are one of the best fan bases in the league. So I think they get a win there. I mean, the Browns game maybe is a loss because of, the division rivalry but I think for the most part, 14-3 seems like a realistic expectation. Like you look at that schedule, outside of a couple games here and there, there's not many that you circle and say they're for sure going to lose that game. I mean, there's really no team, no game on the schedule that they'll for sure lose, but they usually split with their division rivals, and I think Buffalo at home will get the win. But 14-3 seems like the top outcome for this team that very much, you know, is looking for a Super Bowl this upcoming year. What are the Bengals, who obviously have splitting with both Pittsburgh and Baltimore? I think they beat the Bucks at home. It's in my opinion, a battle of should have been fired coaches. But I do like Cincinnati better than Tampa Bay this upcoming year because I do like Cincinnati's coordinators more. I don't like Zach Taylor as a head coach. I think he very much hinders this team's potential. But I do think Cincinnati's roster construction, the coaching hires are better than Tampa Bay's, and they are at home. Houston, I think the Texans win that one. This Jags game should be interesting. Remember last year, like the Jags were like dominating. Burrow gets injured. It feels like Jacksonville's gonna take it away, and then Cincinnati comes back despite no Joe Burrow, and they're able to win that game. Back-to-back losses. I think they get the win against Jacksonville. I have them beating Miami in my AFC's prediction, so they would be 3-2 through their first five, but they definitely could win these games. Who knows? I've been losing to the Ravens, so now they're at what 3-3 now. I think they beat Tennessee. This game could be interesting. The Atlanta game, it's in Spain, so one of those international games that will be very close. But I do think Cincinnati does get the win there, which through 10 games, I think would put them at 6-3 for their final stretch. I did have them losing to Washington. They beat the Saints, lose to Cleveland, which I mean they nearly did last year if it wasn't for a missed field goal. I think they lose to the Chiefs, beat the um, Panthers. I think they beat the Colts on the road, and I have them splitting with Cleveland, which would give them a record of 11-6, which is definitely possible. You look at the schedule. Cincinnati plays a lot of tough teams on the road. So those will be tough games, but they have a chance to win more than I think they can. I think they can, but this is definitely a year where the Bengals should be in the playoff mix, if not competing for this division. Like there is no reason for how talented the Bengals are to not be in the mix for this playoff race. But we'll just have to see how things turn out. And then finally, the Browns, who I have going 2-4 in the division. This is going to be a tough year for the Browns. I think they lose to Jacksonville week one. Should be an interesting game. We don't even know who the starter is, whether it's Deshaun or Shador, but I don't think either gives them a really high ceiling to where they're going to be anywhere good. I think they lose to Tampa Bay. I think the Bucks also lost to Cincinnati. Um, win that game. I think the Panthers win on the road. I'm not high on the Browns. I had them losing to the Jets just because I think the Jets are a better team and I think they're more structurally I think they're structured where they're going to be better than Cleveland. Like Cleveland seems more of a future team than a team trying to compete this upcoming year. I think they lose to Tennessee. I think they lose to New Orleans, which would put them at a 1-8 through 9 games, which I don't want to say, but if you look at that schedule and it's like outside of like a couple games against like teams, so most people would like put them in that same tier with. I feel like there's not many winnable games early on in the schedule, but maybe they could win some late. I think they lose to Houston, which puts them at 1-9 through their bye. I think they beat the Raiders. I think they beat the Falcons. Lose to the Giants. Actually, I'm gonna have them lose to Atlanta and lose to Indianapolis. They are home games, and I'm not high on those two teams, but I do think they'll be better than what I've been saying. I feel like I've been very disrespectful to those two teams, which we have the Browns finishing at 3-14. Not the record they're hoping for because last year they went 5-12, and the team was hoping to continue to go up. But this is very much a year where the Browns just sit back, hope their young guys continue to develop, hope that Andrew Berry continues to have success drafting, and hoping the Browns will be better than like the draft classes will be better than prior draft classes, and you find your quarterback next year, and hopefully this team can finally move forward after what's been a disastrous last couple of years. After what seemed to be the Browns finally being back on track and finally being a really good team, because there was a point, with Baker, Kevin Stefanski, Miles Garrett, Nick Chubb, the great offensive line. Felt like the Browns were finally doing something, and then Jimmy Haslam essentially just blew it up, wanting to get a quote unquote better quarterback, which Deshaun has not been a better quarterback when he's been with the Browns. Who knows? Maybe Deshaun wins the job and he plays like he did before he got injured in 2023, and the Browns are somewhat competent and they win more games. Who knows? Maybe Shador takes a leap in year two with Todd Monken. But I'm not high on this Cleveland team. 3 wins, I feel like, might be their max. But that'll do it for today's video. Hope you guys enjoy these prediction videos going game by game. Because I like to see what you guys think about my predictions and what you guys might predict for how these teams will finish. But until the next video, hope you guys like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Check me out on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. And until the next time, hope you guys have a great day, and bye.